Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I started playing paintball when I was 12, and it helped me deal with my anger after my parents divorced. My dad thought paintball might be a good outlet for me, and he was right. There is something about the strategy, the adrenaline, and the teamwork that just clicked with me. Now at 17, I've been playing for 5 years, and I'm pretty serious about it. My dad got me a brand new paintball marker for my birthday, a Planet Eclipse marker that cost him over $1,000. I also got a new barrel kit that lets me fine-tune my shots. It's the nicest equipment I've ever owned. Since winter gear makes me feel clunky and slow on the field, my dad and I decided to wait until spring to really break in my new setup. Today was finally warm enough to play without all the heavy clothes. We arrived at the paintball park early, and my dad went into the pro shop to pay for our day passes. That's when this woman approached me. She had 2 kids with her, maybe around 10 and 12 years old, and they all looked pretty new to paintball based on their rental gear. The woman asked if I could go easy on her boys since it was their first time playing. I told her sure, no problem, because we all started somewhere. I figured I'd take it easy on them since they were clearly beginners. My dad came back from the pro shop and we started filling up our paint pod holders and hoppers with paintballs. We always bring 6 cases of paint because we play hard all day long. When we were getting ready, the woman came back over to us. She asked if we could give them a case or 2 of our paint. I told her sorry, but me and my dad were planning to use all of our cases of paint. The woman's husband seemed embarrassed and tried to smooth things over by saying they should be fine and could always buy more if they needed it. But the woman insisted that we had so much paint and wouldn't use all of it. My dad tried to be diplomatic about the whole thing and told her that if we had any left over at the end of the day, we'd give the rest to them. She gave us this disgusted look like we'd personally offended her, then walked away with her family. About an hour and a half later, we ended up on opposite teams during one of the games. I'll be honest, after how rude she was earlier, I wanted to get her out in the most legal but satisfying way possible. At this paintball park, bunkering is allowed. That's when you get really close to someone before shooting them, and it stings a lot more. During the game, I noticed both her kids were cheating. Every time they got hit, they'd wipe the paint off and keep playing instead of calling themselves out like you're supposed to. This really ticked me off because cheating ruins the game for everyone. I decided to target one of the kids and shot him in the hand, which is one of the most painful places to get hit. The kid started crying and the referee took him out of the match. The mom was absolutely furious. She started walking toward me on the field, which you're never supposed to do during a game. When she got about 20 feet away from me, I shot her 3 times in the leg and once on her mask. The referee immediately pulled her out of the match and the game ended. Back in the safe zone, her younger kid found someone's paintball marker lying around and started pretending to shoot people with it. I grabbed it away from him and told him to never point guns at things because that's basic safety. The kid then asked if he could use my gun. I explained that my gun was important to me and very expensive, so I didn't want anything to happen to it. The kid started yelling that he wanted to use the gun right now. His dad tried to redirect him by suggesting they go look at the other matches, but the kid screamed that he didn't want to do that and still wanted to use the gun. The woman then demanded to know why I wouldn't let him use the gun. My dad explained that he'd just gotten it for me for my birthday, and it was brand new and quite expensive, so we didn't want to run any risk of damage. She scoffed and said that their guns cost $50 each, so my gun wasn't expensive at all and was just like all the others. She had no idea what she was talking about. Her rental markers cost maybe $50, but mine cost over 20 times that amount. The next game was about to start, but when I looked for my mask, I realized her older kid had taken it. I started chasing him around the safe zone trying to get it back. While I was distracted, the younger kid grabbed a loaded marker and shot me 8 times right under my eye. When I turned around, I saw the woman actually helping her son aim at me. I completely lost it. I yelled at her asking what she was doing and pointing out that I could have lost an eye or worse, and she had just helped her son do this to me. My dad backed me up, saying that what they did was completely unacceptable and I could have been seriously injured. Both kids started crying and the woman started crying too. A referee came over to see what was happening and the woman immediately tried to play victim. She claimed that I was framing them by rubbing paint on my face to make it look like they shot me. I was amazed that she was trying to lie her way out of it when there were witnesses everywhere. But then something amazing happened. Her husband, who had been quiet and embarrassed all day, finally found his voice. He told everyone that his wife was lying and that he had seen his wife and son shoot me, and that he was done with this behavior. The referee called security and they ended up calling the police. My dad and I decided to press charges against the woman for allowing her child to assault me with what's technically considered a weapon. The officers took statements from everyone, including her husband, who backed up our story. When they were leading the woman away in handcuffs, she was still screaming about how unfair everything was. Her husband was filling out paperwork to file for divorce right there at the paintball park. Before we left, my dad and I gave all our remaining paint to him and his kids, just like we'd originally promised. The poor guy looked like he'd been dealing with the woman's entitled behavior for years and was finally free. The charges stuck and the woman ended up with community service and had to pay for my medical bills when the welts under my eye got infected. 18 months ago, doctors told me I had colon cancer. The diagnosis hit like a truck, but I knew I had to fight. What followed was an 18-hour surgery that left me looking like I'd been through a war zone. The surgeons had to remove about a foot of my large intestine and 18 lymph nodes to make sure they got everything. When I woke up in the intensive care unit, I had this massive scar running down the center of my body from just below my chest all the way past my belly button. But that wasn't the worst part. I also had to get what's called a colostomy, which means I have this medical device stuck to the side of my body that collects waste instead of me being able to go to the bathroom normally. It's basically a bag that I have to empty and change every few days. The good news is it's temporary, and I'll be able to get everything reconnected soon. So this morning I was sitting in one of those huge waiting rooms at the medical building next to the hospital. I was there to see my surgeon about scheduling the surgery to reconnect everything. These waiting rooms are massive because they serve multiple doctors, and I knew I'd be waiting a while since my surgeon is really popular. That's why I brought my Nintendo Switch to help pass the time. I've been playing for maybe 10 minutes when this dad and his kid sat down near me. The kid was probably around 10 or 11 years old, and he immediately noticed my gaming system. I heard him tell his dad excitedly that I had a Switch. His dad just acknowledged it casually. I'm pretty social and love talking to people, especially kids. I have 7 nieces and nephews, so I'm used to hanging out with kids this age. Plus, I've been a gamer my whole life, even though I'm in my mid-30s now. I asked the father if he minded if I played a few games with his son. The father seemed totally normal at this point and said he had no problem with it. I set up the Switch on the little table between our chairs and handed the kid one of the controllers. We started with some racing games, and the kid was having a blast. He was laughing and getting excited every time he won a race. After a couple of races, he asked what other games I had. When I pulled out Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, this kid went crazy with excitement. He was literally jumping up and down in his chair. We ended up playing for almost an hour, and I was having just as much fun as he was. The kid was actually pretty good at the game. Then I heard them call my name from across the waiting room. I raised my hand so the nurse could see me, quickly took my controller back from the kid, and packed everything into my backpack. The nurse was holding the door open for me, so I started walking over. When I reached the nurse, I felt someone tap me on the shoulder. It was the dad. He asked if I could let his son play my Switch while I was in with the doctor. I told him sorry, but I had a blast playing with his kid, but I didn't know if they'd still be there when I got back. Then he asked me why I needed it anyway since I was an adult. I was shocked that he'd even ask that. I just turned around to follow the nurse, who was still holding the door open and looking impatient. Now here's where I need to explain something important. During that hour of gaming, my colostomy bag had been filling up. By this point, it was more than half full, and since I was wearing a t-shirt, you could see the outline of it pretty clearly. To give you an idea of how obvious it is, a few weeks earlier, a police officer thought I was carrying a gun under my shirt because of the bulge it makes. The dad called me a fat jerk and said I was going to give his son the game or else. The nurse finally tried to help by telling the guy to leave me alone, but she sounded pretty weak about it. This guy was huge, probably 6'4" and built like he spent all his time at the gym. I'm a big guy too at 6'2", and I'm overweight, but I don't get intimidated easily. I told him it wasn't going to happen. That's when things got physical. I was only half facing him when he grabbed my shoulder and spun me around to face him directly. Then he started trying to get his other hand under my shirt. He was yelling at me to give it to him and calling me a fat jerk. He was grabbing at whatever he could feel under my shirt. I guess he thought it was some kind of portable gaming device or something. The problem is, what he was grabbing was my colostomy bag, and those things are attached with really strong medical adhesive. When he finally got a grip on it and pulled as hard as he could, I screamed in pain. The adhesive was so strong that it actually tore some of my skin off when he ripped it away from my body. But here's the thing about colostomy bags. They're perfectly sealed when they're attached properly, but once you start pulling them off, well, let's just say the contents don't stay contained. When he yanked the bag toward himself, it turned upside down and all the waste inside came flying out all over his shirt, pants, and shoes. I got a little bit on my shirt, but he got the worst of it by far. The smell hit everyone in the waiting room immediately. He started to run away while still holding the bag, but halfway through his turn he realized something was very wrong. He just stopped dead in his tracks, looking down at himself in complete horror. The nurse quickly led me back into the examination room, and my surgeon was there within seconds, making sure I was okay. The bleeding wasn't too bad, and luckily I always carry a spare colostomy bag in my backpack for emergencies. I was able to get cleaned up and back to normal pretty quickly. I washed a small spot on my shirt in the sink. It came out easily with soap and water. Later, the front desk staff told me what happened after I went back with the nurse. The guy just stood there for several minutes, completely stunned. They said he looked like he had no idea what had just happened. Eventually, he dropped the colostomy bag on the floor, yelled for his son, and tried to leave the building. Security caught up with him before he could get out, and he was arrested right there in the lobby. The police told me I need to come in tomorrow to give an official statement. The next morning, I got a call from a lawyer at the prosecutor's office asking me to come to her office instead of the police station. When I got there, she explained that the guy had been arrested but released on bail. There was some debate in their office about what exactly to charge him with. Two lawyers were arguing about whether grabbing my colostomy bag counted as assault or theft. One argued it was part of my body, while the other said it was my property. The prosecutor told me that for now, he was only charged with a misdemeanor, but once they settled this legal question, they'd be adding additional charges. She told me the chances of this going to trial were pretty slim, so I probably wouldn't have to testify. I didn't even have a choice about whether to press charges. Because there were so many witnesses in that waiting room, the state was prosecuting him regardless of what I wanted. The whole thing was nuts. I went in expecting a routine appointment about my upcoming surgery and ended up dealing with some entitled dad who thought he could just take whatever he wanted. I guess he learned the hard way that not everything that bulges under someone's shirt is a toy he can grab. I'm 17 and live alone in a small apartment after my parents decided I was old enough to handle myself. It's been working out pretty well for the past 6 months, though I still mess up sometimes and forget to buy groceries until my fridge is completely empty. That's exactly what happened last Tuesday. I opened my fridge expecting to find something decent for lunch, but all I saw were some expired yogurt cups and a half-empty bottle of ketchup. My stomach was growling, so I grabbed my wallet and headed to the local mall. They have a decent food court and a supermarket, so I could grab lunch and stock up on groceries at the same time. The mall was pretty busy for a weekday afternoon. I made my way to the food court and got in line at the taco place. The smell was incredible, and I was already imagining biting into those crispy shells when I felt a small bump against my leg. I looked down and saw a little girl, maybe 8 or 9 years old, who had accidentally run into me while she was looking around frantically. I apologized to her and asked if she was okay. She nodded but looked really worried. I had noticed her running around the food court earlier, checking different areas like she was searching for something important. I asked her if she was looking for someone because she seemed lost. She told me she couldn't find her mom and that her mom was there just a minute ago but had disappeared. The poor kid looked like she was about to cry. I looked at my spot in line, then back at her worried face. I had two choices: leave my place in line to help her search, or stay put and maybe help in a different way. I asked her if she was hungry and offered to get her some food while we figured out how to find her mom. Her face lit up a little and she said yes, she was really hungry. I ordered my tacos and got her a plate of nachos with extra cheese. We sat down at a nearby table and she seemed to relax a bit while eating. After we finished, I had an idea. I suggested we go talk to the security guard because they could help us find her mom using the intercom system. She nodded eagerly and we walked over to the security post near the main entrance. The guard was a middle-aged man who looked like he'd dealt with lost kids before. I explained to him that this little girl couldn't find her mom and asked if he could help us. He said of course he would help and asked the girl what her mom's name was. She told him her mom's name was Karen. The security guard picked up his radio and made an announcement over the mall's intercom system asking for Karen to come to the security post. Within a few minutes, a woman came rushing over. She looked annoyed rather than relieved. She told the girl that there she was and to come on because she'd been gone for way too long. The way she grabbed the girl's arm roughly made my blood boil. I hate seeing people treat others badly, especially kids who can't defend themselves. I told her I knew it wasn't really my business, but she cut me off and said if it wasn't my business, then I shouldn't say anything. I said I just thought that was no way to treat a child who was scared and lost. She yelled at me not to tell her how to raise her kid and walked off, dragging the girl behind her. I could see the fear in the kid's eyes when they walked away. The security guard told me to let it go because there was no point arguing with people who have less brain cells than a rock. I said I just hated seeing people act like that because it wasn't right. He agreed that he hated it too, but explained there was nothing he could do about it or he'd lose his job. I was still fuming, but I realized I had groceries to buy. I thanked the security guard and headed to the supermarket section of the mall. I was in the dairy aisle looking for milk when I heard a loud voice behind me. I turned around to see the same woman from earlier yelling that there I was and that she'd been looking for me for 5 hours. She looked furious. I told her I was sorry but asked why she was looking for me and pointed out that it had only been about an hour since we talked. She screamed that it was because I embarrassed her in front of everyone and made her look bad in front of her little brat. Did she just call her own daughter a brat? My anger started building again. I asked her to please lower her voice because I didn't need her yelling at me. She screamed even louder asking what I had said. Now everyone in the produce section was staring at us. I noticed her daughter standing behind her, looking absolutely terrified and starting to cry. I told her she was scaring her daughter and asked her to please calm down. She asked if I wanted to give her attitude and yelled that I should respect my elders. Then she actually tried to slap me. Luckily, she was so slow that I just stepped back and avoided it completely. She screamed at me to shut up and said I thought I was so smart. I'd had enough. My dad always told me I inherited his deep voice, and when I get really angry, it shows. I yelled back asking what the hell she thought she was doing. My voice came out way louder and deeper than I intended. I'm only 5'10", but I guess I sounded pretty intimidating because even some of the other shoppers looked startled. Then I saw the little girl's face and felt terrible. I was scaring her too. I told Karen I was done with this and to just leave me alone. She said not to yell at her and called me a brat. She said since I embarrassed her again, I was going to pay for it. Before I could react, she lunged forward and grabbed my wallet right out of my hand. I was so shocked I didn't even move for a second. I yelled at her to give me my wallet back. She said I owed her for the embarrassment, so it was hers now. She actually thought she could just steal my wallet in front of everyone. What she didn't realize was that at least 10 people had witnessed the entire thing. A woman near the apples was already on her phone and I could hear her talking to someone about calling mall security. Within minutes, 2 security guards showed up They saw me, a 17-year-old kid, arguing with a middle-aged woman over my wallet. One of them asked what was going on. They separated us and started asking questions. I explained everything that had happened, starting from helping the lost girl in the food court. Since there were so many witnesses who saw Karen grab my wallet, it was pretty clear what had happened. One of the security guards asked if I wanted to press charges for theft. I was about to say no, I just wanted my wallet back and to go home. But then I looked at the little girl again. She was still crying and I could see bruises on her arms that I hadn't noticed before. This woman had called her own daughter a brat, grabbed her roughly, and was clearly abusing her. I told them yes, I wanted to press charges. The security guards called the police, and when they arrived, they took statements from everyone. The officers noticed the same things I had about the little girl's condition. They started asking her questions privately, and whatever she told them made their expressions very serious. Karen was arrested that day, not just for stealing my wallet, but for child abuse. Apparently, the bruises on her daughter's arms were just the beginning. The investigation revealed she had been mistreating the girl for months. I had to go to court to testify about the theft, but honestly, that felt like the least important part of the whole situation. The girl was placed with her father, who seemed like a much better parent from what I could tell. A month later, I still think about that day sometimes. I went to the mall just wanting some tacos and groceries, but I ended up helping get a kid out of a really bad situation. Karen got what she deserved, and hopefully, that little girl is somewhere safe now where people treat her with the kindness she deserves. I never did get those groceries. I was so shaken up after everything that I just went home and ordered pizza instead. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.